If I want to be with someone, I just want to be with someone who makes me happy and excited and my best self. And then it wasn't until I was on Hinge and texting, I guess, with my now girlfriend, and I was like, I think I like her. Like, and that was, I think, the first time I said out loud to myself, I think I'm gay, or like, I'm gay. And then I was like, that's okay.
Well, happy Pride, Deep Divers. In honor of this Pride Month, we wanted to celebrate what it means to live an authentic life with 3 individuals who dared to dream big and live free. So, tell me your coming out story.
My brother calls me one day and asked me if I was gay. He went out of his way to say, you can tell me, and I promise I won't tell my parents. A month after, my mother calls me, and she didn't directly address the topic. I decided to say to my mom, is there something that you need to speak to me about? It sounds like you're sort of beating around the bush about something. I don't think we've ever, still to this day, have even said, I said, I'm gay, I'm a gay man. I told her in that moment. But I don't think she's even acknowledged me in that way.
I had dated men historically. I had a very long-term boyfriend and thought my life would just be, you know, if I stay with someone through college, we'll get married, we'll have a picket fence. But like, that's not the life I envisioned myself. In quarantine, I just kept saying to myself, who I come out of quarantine as, I want to be proud of. Like however I get there, I just want to be proud of who that person is. And so I was in my home bedroom with my mom and my sister, and my sister was like, oh, I didn't know that so-and-so was gay. And I kind of got I was like, oh, that doesn't, like, who cares? That's great. And they were just like, oh, I just didn't know. And it just went back and forth really quick. I think my mom was like, well, are you gay? Or like something. And my sister was like, are you gay? And I was like, yeah, actually I am. And she was like, are you talking to someone? And I was like, yeah, actually I am. And it was just like silence. And my mom was like, do you have any good podcasts to listen to? And I was like, yeah, there's some gay podcasts I've been like listening to.
It was probably around 24 that I came out to my parents. I realized I had no interest in guys whatsoever, and it was time to just pull the trigger and tell them. I said, you know, I know you thought I was bisexual or this was a phase, but I'm just gay, and you know, that's what I've come to realize. And my dad kind of just sat on the couch and was like, didn't really have anything to say, looked a little disgruntled. And my mom's like, well, you know, I kind of knew since you were little. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, you could have told me. And then, you know, she started crying and I started crying. And then she stops and she says, well, you know, in the Bible, it says that this is a sin and you're going to go to hell. And yeah, so I kind of stopped. I'm like, oh, that's why you're crying. It's not because we're having this moment. It's because it's going back to the Bible situation.
For Mayne-Leduc, they had to come out twice, first as queer and then as non-binary.
It's probably been 2 years now since I came out as non-binary. I changed my name and kind of a shortened version of my dead name. It's most likely your birth name before coming out or transitioning. And so I'm like, okay, this will be easier to digest. It's like a nickname. So I kind of explained that to them. I don't think they really got it. My dad kind of joked around about it a lot. And just the refusal to like use my correct name, use my pronouns, and finally came to a head with my dad. And I'm like, you know what? This is not good for me. I don't need to be dead named by you. I don't need to be misgendered by you. Kind of cut ties with both of my parents after that.
Psychotherapist and author Dr. Mike Dow says there are psychological effects to not living your truest self that can also manifest in other ways.
There are a lot of things that are just sort of this very inside job. And if we don't work on it from the inside out, it tends to manifest in things like addiction, self-medication, self-mutilation.
There was a lot of inner turmoil and really not knowing who I was and thinking that the things that I was feeling was wrong and that they needed to change. Those feelings needed to change. I needed to change.
I think that I also dated guys for so long is because I was trying to like fit this picture of what I was supposed to be, you know. We were supposed to get married and have a family, and thinking that those things were out of reach.
Dr. Mike Dow says for himself, as well as all LGBTQ plus individuals, coming out has to be done on your own time and in your own way.
Some people do it in a big, grand way, and other people, and I know this was true for me personally, it was sort of a process. What I do with my patients, if they have a fear or they have something that they really want to do in their life, I break things down into baby steps. So if you're not somebody who can sort of just do it in that big, grand way, it's also okay to take baby steps.
The other person I told kind of after myself was a good friend of mine. It was a Friday night. I just like blurted out to her, you know what, this night couldn't get any more weird. I'm talking to a girl. And she just looked at me and she's like, that's great. So it felt so good to have like that kind of validation for me when I was not quite sure where this was going.
My aunt and uncle, I came out to before I came out to my parents. The conversation maybe lasted for all of 10 minutes, maybe less. And they were just sort of like, you know, we've always known. I think a lot of people in my life have always assumed or known. But it just wasn't a big deal.
Arnold Davick, reporter for News 12 Brooklyn, New York, agrees that although coming out in 2021 is an easier experience for some, for many queer youth, the obstacles remain the same.
We hear stories all the time in the LGBTQ plus community where people get kicked out of their homes for coming out.
I have personally been the subject of violence 2 times. One time was pretty scary, having a rock thrown at me at the corner of Santa Monica and Robertson in the heart of West Hollywood. I didn't have the hardest coming out story. I think my family was pretty open and accepting. But then you have those moments in this world where you realize, oh, there are people who really do hate you for who you are in the middle of West Hollywood, California. So I think there are those moments that even if you have a quote smooth coming out process, we are still targeted in this modern day and era in the United States for who we are.
I think to experience love is such a beautiful thing. For people to say, you know, that it's wrong or not right. I know how much I love my girlfriend that I can't picture anyone having a bad thing to say about it. Like there's so many other things in this world that we can get heated about. Love should not be one of them.
For those not lucky enough to have a safe and supporting family when they choose to come out, the one thing we can all agree on is the value of finding a community or a chosen family.
If you come from like a very traumatic background, it's so important to get therapy. I've, been seeing a psychologist, and that has helped me so much with like processing these feelings of, not being wanted and not accepted. It may feel like you're alone and you're on this island, but like we live in this digital age where I'm in a non-binary group on Facebook and I'm in a gay kickball league. It's like these resources are out there. There's centers, there's groups, whatever niche you're looking for, you can find it. And I think that's the great thing about today. It's so easy to find your tribe.
Having loved ones that do love you for who you are makes a world of difference, because they remind you and tell you that you do deserve love, you deserve kindness, and that just because someone else isn't supporting you, that's not a reflection of who you are as a person. It's a reflection of where their minds are.
Do you miss your family?
I wish I was closer to them. So I don't know if that's the same as missing them, but I think that growing up, I had such a detached upbringing from them. I just sort of kept to myself. When I moved away, I wasn't missing anything that I had before, because I didn't have it before.
It's always been such a tumultuous relationship. I miss this idea of having parents, but not my actual parents.
For all the anxiety and sometimes heartbreak it takes to come out, Dr. Mike says living your truest, authentic self pays off big.
It leads to this freedom when you are just moving about the world. So I would just say I'm happier, I'm less anxious, I sleep better at night, and that has all improved my mental health.
When I was in college, I was hiding or denying something and trying to act in a way that would draw less attention to the fact that I was gay. That's really one of the biggest things that I would say. I felt so much more comfortable, and now I feel so much more comfortable, more confident in my own skin.
It just felt like coming home to myself. and just realizing who I am as a whole person.
It wasn't truly until I was just like, I'm gonna focus on myself and what makes me happy, and being just so open to whoever that looks like.
What advice would you give to someone struggling to come out?
The moment that you accept who you are is truly the moment also that your life changes. It's kind of like a weight off your shoulder that you never knew you were carrying.
So I guess the big question is, any regrets?
I don't regret it one bit.
I had to go through what I went through to get to the point where I felt comfortable enough to have these conversations with the people around me. So no regrets.
None at all. It's unreal to me sometimes, that I live in downtown Long Beach. I have this great community of gay friends. There's rainbows painted on the crosswalk, and I live here with my wife and my 2 cats, and I get to be me.
When you get to your deathbed and you look back on your life, what are you going to regret? And I don't think any person is going to regret coming out, but certainly they're going to regret their short time on this planet not being their truest and most authentic self.
You heard it, deep divers. When you're able to live out exactly who you were destined to be, regrets are left in the past, and the only thing in front of you is a life of abundance. It won't be easy, but it's worth it. And WithHealth.com stand with you all the way.